proper. So having seen the convolution sum equation, how the discrete time signal can be expressed as the weighted sum of the shifted impulse functions, and how the output of LTI system would become weighted sum of shifted impulse responses. Okay, so weighted sum of shifted impulse responses is what is called convolution sum, and is represented by this star operator. So it is convolution of x of n and h of n, means x of n is the input, h of n is the impulse response. So if you convolve, if you obtain the convolution sum of input and the convolution impulse response, then you can obtain the output of an LTI system. Understand? So we shall see the properties of such convolution sum. Okay, so the first property is this. Everybody just take down. The first property is commutative. Convolution sum is commutative. So you all understand what commutative law is, right? So this is commutative. Let me select it first. Yeah. The first property we are seeing is commutative property. Fine. So what commutative law says? If you have the convolution sum of x of n and h of n, whether you do x of n convolution h of n or h of n convolution x of n, both are equal. This is what commutative law says. So convolution sum is commutative in nature. That means first signal and the second signal, if you interchange, the convolution sum will not change, is what is the property telling you. So let's see the proof of this particular property. Okay, so let's take the proof. And for the proof, let's select the LHS to begin with. So what is LHS? It's x of n convolution sum h of n. Right? And what is this given by? So you need to be really good with this particular equation now, because every now and then you'll be making use of this equation. So you should get very good with this. Fine. So it's summation k ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity x of k into h of n minus k. Okay. So the second signal is n minus k. Fine. So it's summation k ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity x of k into h of n minus k. So this is what is convolution sum of the LHS. Now let's do this. Everybody just make this. Okay, substitute n minus k as m. So let's do this because I need to prove this as RHS, right? So for that, let's substitute n minus k equal to m. So what happens if I substitute n minus k as m is the question. Okay, if n minus k, everybody just see here, observe, we are substituting n minus k as m. If this n minus k is m, what is this k? That also needs to be understood here itself, because that will be substituting in our next step. So when we substitute n minus k as m, I should also know what would k become if n minus k is m. Okay, so this implies that, our k is equal to what? What is it? N minus m. Isn't it? K is equal to n minus m. So let's substitute n minus k as m and k as n minus m. So let's deal with this summation, it runs, whether k runs here, which alphabet runs here from minus infinity to plus infinity, we shall decide after we substitute here. Okay, so before that, see here, if it is k, not n minus k, don't see the what signal with two parameters or two variables. Just see the signal with one variable. So that variable will come and run here from minus infinity to plus infinity. Understand? The signal with one variable, which is that x of k. So k runs from minus infinity to plus infinity. Understand? So let's see how that happens here. Now, therefore our LHS would be given as summation. Let's not take what runs from minus infinity to plus infinity to begin with. So it's x of n minus m and h of m. Is this understood? Now, since this is product of these two, the product of these two can be interchanged, isn't it? The product of those two can be interchanged. So I can write this as h of m into x of n minus m. So if it is so, see here, if it is x of k into h of n minus k, k runs from minus infinity to plus infinity. Okay. Now can you tell me what runs from minus infinity to plus infinity in this equation? Anybody? Just see this. If in this equation k runs from minus infinity to plus infinity, in this equation, which alphabet, whether m should run from minus infinity to plus infinity or n should run? M. Okay, because this is there with this is the single variable that is there with one of the signals. Okay, so here m ranges from what? Minus infinity to plus infinity. Okay, whether it is k or m, okay, so it's the same. Here you have used k as the variable, here you have used m as the variable running from minus infinity to plus infinity. Understand that? Since m is a dummy variable, it is dummy variable, it can be anything. Dummy variable, let small letter m be equal to small letter k. Okay, so therefore our LHS would look like summation k ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity h of k into x of n minus k. So this is what is your RHS. Okay, see here, this is convolution h of n and x of n. So this is what? This is convolution sum of h of n and x of n. So we started with x of n convolution h of n. See here, we started with this LHS. Where is it? See, we started with x of n convolution h of n, and that LHS now has become h of n convolution x of n, which is your RHS. So LHS is equal to RHS. That's why commutative law is proved. It's quite simple stuff. You can just follow this. Fine. Now let's move on with the next property, that is associative property. Fine. Everybody take the heading as associative property. Since here the three variables will be involved, so you may find it little tedious. Okay, but initially you'll find it so. Once you start practicing, you'll be good with this. Okay, so let's see how it looks like. Yeah, now everybody take down this x of n convolution h of n x of n convolution h1 of n. Okay, and this convolution sum is being convolved with h2 of n. Whether you do this or you do this, both are same. Okay, so this is associative property. If you have three signals and if you are obtaining the convolution sum of that, whether you first obtain the convolution of first two signals or last two signals, okay, and then convolve with the remaining signal, the things will not change, the equation will not change, the convolution sum will not change. So that is what the associative property is telling us. Fine. In the proof of this, let x of n convolution h1 of n be f1 of n. Okay, that is this here. So this we have taken and we have called that as f1 of n. Understand that? Now, since it is that, so we can call this as, we can express this as what? f1 of n. We can express this as k running from minus infinity to plus infinity. Okay, x of k h1 of n minus k. So this is one part. So what we have done, we've just taken this and we have called it as f1 of n. Okay, so I can express x1 of n, f1 of n as the convolution sum of this, that is this. Okay, then in the right hand side part, you have to call this as what? f2 of n, and also let h1 of n convolution sum h2 of n be called as f2 of n. And what can I express this as? Now, since this variable k is already used to express f1 of n, let's use some other variable. Understand that? So let's use r here. Let's use r equal to minus infinity to plus infinity. So if I use r, okay, so how can I express this? I can express this as h1 of r into h2 of what? N minus r. So let these be there with us. Okay, so like you can call this as equation number 1 and equation number 2. So very first thing that we have done is this. See here, so we have considered on the LHS part whatever is there in the bracket. Okay, so that we have called as f1 of n, and we have expressed that as the convolution sum. And on the second RHS part, okay, whatever is there in the bracket, we have considered that and expressed that as f2 of n, and we have written the equation for convolution sum. Is that okay with you? Now, what we should do, you see. Fine. Now consider the LHS. Consider LHS that is equal to x of n convolution h1 of n. Okay. Then this convolve with h2 of n. Fine. Now, how can I write this? Now, since we told you this needs to be substituted as f1 of n, this can be expressed as f1 of n convolution sum of h2 of n. Right. Now we have used variable k, we have used variable r in one of the summations. Okay, here we shall use another variable m. Okay, so let's do that. If we use m, how can I write this equation? So this is summation m ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity f1 of m, okay, into h2 of n minus m. Is that understood? Now see here, we have f1 of n written as equation number 1. So if we replace n by m, if I replace n by m, how can I express f1 of m? Everybody just see here. Here we have f1 of m, right? Here we have f1 of n. So in this equation 1, if we replace n by m, it would become f1 of m. Understand that? Therefore, this can be written as summation, one summation in terms of m would be there as it is. Then whatever f1 of m is there. So there we shall write this. What is that? Summation k ranging from, so this equation we are writing. See, this equation we are writing, but in place of n, we have to have m. Fine. K ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity, x of k, h1 of m minus k. If it is f1 of n, it is n minus k. If it is f1 of m, okay, it is m minus k. We have just done that. Okay, so this into h2 of n minus m we have. Fine. You'll not be very comfortable with this unless you do it yourselves. Okay, so I'll give you a fair idea regarding this. Maybe 80% of this you will understand. So if you have confusions, okay, you have to just revisit this particular exercise. You will understand. It's nothing but playing with the variables. That's it. We have we used to consider k, then we have considered r, we have considered m. It's just that. Okay, we're not doing anything else. It's just playing with different variables. Fine. Now here we shall substitute what? M minus k as r. Understand that? M minus k as r we shall substitute and see what happens. Fine. Now here let's rearrange this before that. Let's rearrange this particular summation because we have summation after summation. Fine. So we shall rearrange that properly in the required way. Understand? So where is there an r? Is there an r? Where is r there? Just a minute. So in this, let's substitute m minus k is equal to r. Okay, so this implies that our k is m minus r. Okay, so therefore our LHS would look like, summation just keep it as it is. Fine. So let's have another summation. Fine. Now before doing all this x of k we can take out. or let's substitute. I'm a little confused, but I'll do that. I'll get it properly, no problem. Let's just go one step ahead and see what happens. This is a little confusing, but no problem. I'll deal with it. Now k m minus k needs to be r. That means k is m minus r, right? So it is x of m minus r. Okay. Then what? h1 of r fine. Then this would become what? This would become h2 of m minus k is r, right? So let this be uh, m would be what here? K plus r, right? So here m would be k plus r. So it is n minus k plus r in the bracket. So this is how we shall have this. Okay, and this m minus r what we have. So let's not go with this. Let this be k only. Let this be k only. Fine. Then we have here, this is k ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity. Let's keep this summation out. K ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity. X of k we shall keep out. Then we shall start with this summation, wherein we will have what? h1 of r into h2 of what? n minus k minus r. So this would become n minus k minus r. So this summation should run from where? Which variable will run in this summation? We should see. So r will run because it is h1 of r, right? So r will run from minus infinity to plus infinity. Fine. Now, what is f2 of n? See here, equation 2 here says it is f2 of n. Okay, f2 of n is this, right? So equation 2 says if f2 of n is this, then f2 of n minus k is what? Right? So see here, equation 2 implies, yeah, equation 2 implies f2 of n is what? Summation r running from minus infinity to plus infinity h1 of r into h2 of n minus r. Okay, if this is 2, then this implies therefore f2 of n minus k would look like what? f2 of n minus k would look like what? R ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity. h1 of r would be as it is, but n would be replaced by n minus k. So it is n minus k minus r. Understand that? So see here, so if you call this as equation number 3, okay, where LHS is equation number 3. So see here, so what would this be within the bracket? What we have, it would be f2 of n minus k. Everybody understand that? So it would become f2 of n minus k. Fine. So therefore our LHS would look like, fine, summation k ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity x of k into f2 of n minus k. Fine. So this is convolution of what? So this actually would become convolution of x of n and f2 of n. Okay. So which means that it is convolution of, which means that it is convolution of x of n and h1 of n convolution of h2 of n. So this is your RHS. So LHS is equal to RHS. This is little confusing proof. Okay, so just play with the variables. Okay, so you need to practice this for some time. Okay, so maybe 2 or 3 times if you practice this, you will get to see what it is. Okay, not there is nothing much from signals and system points of view, just rearranging the terms so that we can prove LHS is equal to RHS. Understand that? So it's just that. Let's not bother much. Fine. Okay, so why did I keep this summation without any variables? So here itself I will not understand, okay, which variable will run from minus infinity to plus infinity. So keep this as it is. Okay, take this k running from minus infinity to plus infinity and x of k out, then take all these in the bracket. Then you will understand it is actually r that has to run from minus infinity to plus infinity. Fine, so we have to make such decisions after we write some equations. Okay, so you can just go through that. Okay, and now we shall go with proof number 3, property number 3. That is what? Distributive property. So this associative property they have asked for proof. Okay, some 2 or 3 times. So let's not neglect this proof. Okay, so go through that proof, learn it. If you see it once or twice, you'll understand. Fine. So distributive property is what we are seeing now. This is quite easy to prove. That associative property is a little confusing. That's it. Okay, what is this? If you have x of n, which is being convolved with some of the two signals, that is what? h1 of n plus h2 of n. Okay, then it can be written as x of n convolution h1 of n plus x of n convolution h2 of n. So this is what we need to prove now. Okay, so let's take the proof of this, which is quite simple compared to the associative property. Okay, so let's consider the LHS, which is x of n, and it is convolution of h of v1 plus h2 of n. Fine. Now, what is this? If we write the equation for convolution sum, this would look like summation k ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity x of k, and in the second signal n would become n minus k. So it is what? h1 of n minus k plus h2 of n minus k. This is the equation of convolution sum. Okay, the first signal would have x of k, the second signal would have n minus k. So the second signal is this, right? Sum of the two signals. So in both the signals, n would be replaced by n minus k. Understand? Now, since this is linear system, right? So linear systems, linearity will apply. Understand that? So since linearity is applicable, what I can do is I can say k ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity x of k h1 of n minus k, like this. right? Plus, you can again take that summation with the second term in the summation, that is h2 of n minus k, and it looks like x of k into h2 of n minus k within the summation. Fine. So what is the first summation telling you now? It says it is convolution of x of n and h1 of n. Okay. And the second term tells you that it is convolution of h of n and h2 of n. Fine. So this is your RHS. So LHS is equal to RHS. Fine. This is quite straightforward proof. There's nothing much to get confused. Fine. So it's quite straightforward, and it's very neatly reduced to RHS. Fine. So let's go with another property for which we don't have proof. Okay. Only for first three properties we have proof. So let's only bother about that. The fourth property that we have is this. Okay. The convolution property says this. Convolution of a signal, or what is this? Delta of n as identity signal. Delta of n is an identity signal. Identity signal means what? We shall see. Delta of n as identity signal. That means if you convolve any discrete signal with delta of n, okay, you would get what? The same signal. So that means delta of n is an identity signal. Fine. So this is property of convolution. Or we can also write, since convolution sum is commutative, we can do delta of n convolution x of n also. In that case also it is x of n. Understand? So if you convolve any, so that the statement is, if you convolve means it's obtaining the convolution sum of. If you convolve any signal with delta of n, you will get the same signal back. So this is another property of convolution sum wherein delta of n is coming into picture. Fine. See, convolve any signal x of n with delta of n, you will get back the same. So in that way, this is identity sequence. This delta of n is identity sequence. So whether you do x of n convolution delta of n or delta of n convolution x of n, okay, so it does not matter. But convolving with delta of n will give you the same signal. Whichever the signal you convolve with delta of n, okay, the same signal you will get as the output of that convolution sum. Fine. This is the fourth property of convolution. Fine. Now, fifth one. Here, if you have x of n and delayed delta of n or shifted delta of n. So this is called as delayed delta of n also, because delta of n exists at n equal to 0, but here delta of n exists at n equal to k. So this they call as delayed. The shifted delta of n is called as delayed delta of n sometimes. Okay, so if you convolve the signal with delayed what impulse function, then the signal will also get delayed. So this is because the system is time invariant. Understand that? See, if you convolve x of n with delta of n, you will get x of n. So if you can convolve x of n with delta of n minus k, you will get x of n minus k. Okay, so that means if you convolve, if x of n is convolved with what? Shifted delta of n, then we get shifted x of n. Okay, so everybody just give your attendance. Yeah, in this fifth property, this delta of n minus k shifted. So if you convolve x of n with shifted delta of n, then we get what? Then we get the x of n, which also is shifted. Yes. Then we get shifted x of n as the output. Shifted x of n as the output. So if you convolve x of n with delta of n, okay, you will get the same signal back. If you convolve x of n with delta of n minus k, then you will get the same signal but with the shifted, with the same shift as the delta of n is. Okay, whatever shift you have in delta of n, the same shift you will have in the signal that we get as the output. So that is your fifth property. Understand? If you have two shifted unit impulses, sixth one, suppose you have delta of n minus k as one shifted delta of n, and if that you're convolving with another delta of n with another shift, okay, then what is going to be the convolution output? Okay, then this convolution output can be delta of n minus m plus k. This is another property. You do not have to go and find the convolution of this. Wherever this delta functions are involved, okay, there we need to be a little thoughtful rather, because the normal way of obtaining the convolution sum is not supposed to be done here. Fine. So you need to see the properties of the convolution sum where this impulse functions are involved. Understand that? I'll just summarize the last three properties. Fine. So that is this. If you have x of n, if you convolve that with delta of n, okay, you will get x of n. So this is your third property. Fourth property is if you have x of n and you're convolving that with the shifted impulse function, then the output that we get will also be shifted like this. We get the x of n, but it would be shifted. The no, this is fourth. This is fourth. Fine. This is fifth, and this is sixth, wherein we have two delta of n's. Both are shifted. Okay. So then the output would be what? Delta of n minus of m plus k. So this is it. Fine. So where the convolution sum involves the delta functions, so in those problems you need to refer to these properties. Otherwise, it would be time wasting exercise. Understand that? Now we shall see the problems on convolution sum. Very important, very challenging. What is that? Problems on convolution sum. Now the signals involved may differ. Okay, so let's consider this case 1. In case 1, how many signals are involved in convolution sum? Actually, if you have output of convolution sum is y of n, then 2 signals would be involved, or there could even be 3 signals, maybe. Okay, so in case 1, we can have both the signals infinite. Okay, both, or let's say both the signals finite. Just a minute. Both the signals as finite signals. In case 2, okay, both the signals infinite. In case 3, we shall see 1 finite and 1 infinite. So let's categorize these problems as these 3. Okay, that means in convolution sum, we'll be obtaining the convolution of 2 signals. Okay, so here both these signals could be finite. Okay, both the signals could be infinite. The second case, one signal could be finite, the other signal could be infinite. Understand? So if you see the degree of difficulty, the degree of difficulty is more, degree of difficulty, or it's even the length of the solution. The solution would be lengthier if both are finite, and it would be shorter, the solution would be shorter if both the signals are infinite. So infinity gives shorter solutions here, and finite signals would give lengthier solutions. Everybody get that point? So this is how we shall categorize them. Understand? So you should now understand they'll give us 2 signals and they will ask us to find the convolution of those signals. Okay, so let's go with both the signals as finite signals. Okay, so let's go with the problems on case 1. Case 1 problems. Case 1 problems. Which are case 1 problems? Both signals are finite. Both signals are finite, mind you. Fine. So let's take the first problem under this. Everybody just copy down this. Compute the convolution of two sequences x1 of n and x2 of n. Given below. Okay, so that x1 of n is this 1, 2, 3. So this is where you have 0th sample, and x2 of n is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and this third sample is the 0th sample. So everybody understand that? So we've been given two signals. Okay, now these two signals we need to consider to obtain the convolution. Okay, so what is the equation for convolution sum? Let's see that. Everybody just take down this. What is it? Y of n is equal to x1 of n convolution x2 of n. Right? Now, this can be given as what? This can be given as convolution, means it is summation of k ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity. X1 of k, the first signal would become x1 of k. The second signal would become x2 of n minus k. Understand? So this is what is the convolution sum signal. Now we need to calculate the convolution sum using this. So what we are doing now is a method wherein we calculate what? The convolution output. Now we should see how many samples should be there in the convolution output. Okay, how many samples are supposed to be there in the convolution output? Okay, so that needs to be understood. Fine. Now, how many samples are there in the first signal? There are 3 samples. In the second signal, how many samples are there? There are 4 samples. Understand? So the length of the first signal is 3. The length of the second signal is 4. Yes, length of first signal is 3 and length of second signal is 4. Fine. So what would be the length of the output signal is the question. Okay, so first let's understand the length of the output signal. What is that? Fine. So let n1 equal to 3. Okay, what is this? This is length of x1 of n. Fine. Then n2 is there. What is n2? Length of the second signal, it is 4. This is length of the second signal. x2 of n. Fine. So then what would be the length of the convolved output? Therefore, the length of convolution output sequence means, understand, the discrete time signals are also referred to as sequence. Understand that the discrete time signals can also be referred to as sequences. See, that's why they are asking us like this: compute the convolution of two sequences. The continuous time signals are not called as sequences, they are called as sequences, they are called as signals only. But in discrete time, the discrete time signals can be called as signals, or they can also be called as sequences. Understand that? So they are sequences or they are discrete signals. Fine. Then the output, the length of the convolution output sequence would be here, it's n1 plus n2 minus 1. So what would be this? So it's 3 plus 4 minus 1, so it would be 6. So 6 samples you need to have. The first signal has got what? 3 samples. The second signal has got 4 samples. That means the convolution output needs to have 6 samples. And where it should start? The start of the first sample. See where the first sequence is starting? The first sequence is starting at what? N equal to 0. Right? The second signal is starting at what? If this is n equal to 0, n equal to minus 1, n equal to minus 2. Understand? So start of y of n would be what? See here, start of y of n. So this is output sequence y of n. So this is y of n actually. This is length of y of n. So where should y of n start? The first signal is starting at 0. The second signal is starting at minus 2. The first signal is starting at 0. The second signal is starting at minus 2. Okay. So start of y of n is where? So that means it's start of x1 of n plus start of what? Start of x2 of n. So where is x1 of n starting? So x1 of n is starting at n equal to 0. x2 of n is starting at n equal to minus 2. So where would y of n start? It would start at minus 2. So start of y of n is at n equal to minus 2. So where would n be there? Everybody just let me know. Where would n be there? N would be there here. Here, end of y of n. Where would y of n end? End of y of n. Okay, it is end of x1 of n plus end of x2 of n. Where is x1 of n ending? See, so this is 0, means 0, 1, 2. So it is ending at n equal to 2. Where is this ending? This is ending at n equal to 1. Since this is 0, this is ending at n equal to 1. This is ending at n equal to 2. Understand that? Therefore, the end of x of n is 2 and end of x2 of n is 1. Right? So where will y of n end? So it will end at 3. So therefore our y of n should actually look like this. It should have 6 what? Samples. it should have 6 samples, right? So you should have y of 0 here, comma y of 1, or let's say y of 1, y of 2, and y of 3. And this is, and on this side it is y of -1 and y of -2. It starts at -2 and ends at 3. Okay, and this is how the sequence should look like. So this is your 0th sample. Starts at 2, starts at -2, ends at 3. Understand that? So this is n equal to 0th sample. So this is the homework we should do before we start with the actual solution. Understand that?